Welcome to Intimate Conversations. I'm your host, Alana Pratt. I'm passionate about your relationships thriving and your family flourishing through a healthy, intimate relationship with yourself, with Source, and with your beloved. So sit back, relax, because it's time to get intimate. It is so good to be here with all of you. I love how friends and, part of the community come on and say hello. And I'm also glad that virgins, there's a first timer as well on the show or listening to the show. So all of you are completely welcome as I welcome Brian Bajan. He is the founder of Fearless, and he helps students build deep elite levels of confidence that allow them to achieve success and connect with people at degrees they never, ever believed possible before. He's passionate about guiding people in the pursuit of their dream life, and he does this by helping them get underneath layers of social conditioning, often unconscious social conditioning, and fears that they've picked up throughout their life to find their most authentic, fearless selves. So I'm going to ask, his bio is a lot longer, but I'm going to ask some questions so we can get more into a dance with him. And so without further ado, those of you who are listening can also check him out at alanapratt.com/Brian. That's BRIAN-Bajan, which is spelled BEGIN. All right, so you can start to check him out as you're listening. If you're by your computer, Brian, welcome to the show.
And thank you. Thank you for having me, by the way.
Oh, it's totally my pleasure.
I'm excited to be here, and I'm excited to meet your listeners.
Oh, wonderful. Listeners, I was talking with Brian, I guess just a couple of weeks ago, and there was so much in common about our, I guess, what would you say, Brian, our journeys into this line of work. Why don't you tell people maybe the good, the bad, the ugly, like who were you? How did you get into this? How did it all happen?
Gladly. I started out as a very shy and anxious child. I had a lot of fear. And I think that was really family-based fear. It had been passed down from generation, and I grew up terrified basically of people and anxiety in my body. I also had some illnesses, medical problems going on that were causing the anxiety to amplify. And so I actually remember in grade school wanting to not go to school and sneaking home from school from time to time just because I didn't want to be around people. I wanted to be alone. So I basically grew up to be agoraphobic, not wanting to leave the house a lot, being pretty antisocial, small group of friends. And as I got older, I spent a lot of time thinking a lot about why this was, because I began to hate it. I began to hate that I would run away from people that wanted to be my friends, things like this. And the question in my mind all the time was why, and how could I change this? Yeah. And when I got out of high school, I realized if I didn't do something about this, I'd probably spend the rest of my life miserable and alone. And that's that. Now I'm 46 now, and that's when the journey began. I started studying voraciously every book in the personal growth section. I got rid of all my video games, my D&D stuff, all the stuff that kept me introverted, Dungeons and Dragons back in the day. And got rid of all that and said, if I keep doing this stuff, it's going to keep me away from socializing. And it was just like this knowing inside of me, a conscious choice I had to do something. And I spent years kind of studying head knowledge, and I gained all this knowledge, but and I could talk, but I wasn't really changing. I became super analytical about it all. And so I talked about it well, but I wasn't living it. And that had to change. So then I went to eventually hypnosis college, and that helped a little bit. I started studying mind-body connection, and then I went and I just kept pushing myself. I moved into a yoga community for a while, sold all my stuff, took one bag, said I'm going to live here for a year, and I did that.
Wow, in the States or in India or something?
In the States. It was a place I just happened to find. I took another corporate job sitting in a cubicle, and which I hated all the time. I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. Sure. And this place just happened to be down the street, and I started hanging out down there more and more, going to their healing clinics, talking to people. And they just said, hey, if you want to move in here, get rid of all your stuff. And I quit my jobs, got rid of all my stuff, got somebody to lease my apartment, and I just moved in. I was set up with life. Wow. And that was the big turning point. the big thing with me was dating and relationships. I had gotten more outgoing. I was connecting to more people, kind of on a heady basis, but I was talking a lot. And the funny part for me was that I moved into this place thinking, well, I'll meet some cute girls here because there's, I'm a spiritual guy and there's spiritual girls. And, well, that didn't work. I knew I was being, still didn't, there were definitely spiritual cute girls there, but it just wasn't changing. Then this guy moves in, and he had no place to go because he was out of parole. He was out on parole, just got out of jail, and had no job, had no money, had no car, had no anything. And he moves in there, and I noticed every girl was attracted to him. Every girl wants to date him. All these spiritual girls are chasing him around.
Okay.
And so this is where I was like, okay, something is really going on here. I can either hate this guy, get to know this guy, and be his friend. Yeah. And that was the big shift. I ended up moving in with him, even though he had no money, probably a bad move, right? And I moved in with him because I just wanted to watch his behavior and see who he was. And I moved in with him and a girl that was a good friend of mine. And that's kind of where I started to really study human behavior at an intimate level. I just noticed this guy gets on a dating site, and one girl after another is coming over to hang out with him. And I'm like, dating sites, I don't even get one hit. How is this guy getting all these hits off these dating sites? I couldn't understand it. Yeah. And that was the beginning of the journey. I started to really hang out with people. I started making friends. Instead of reading, I started making friends with all kinds of people that were already living the way I wanted to live. Not just him. I started expanding out, and I started chasing them down, finding people, making friends with them, and connecting with them, getting advice from them, being mentored by them. And I learned a lot in a short period of time, and I quickly fell in love because I met a girl that was more interesting and more confident and more outgoing than any girl I'd ever dated before because I was changing. Yeah. And then the thought in my mind the whole time that I was going out with her for the 2 months or so that I did was, when am I going to blow this? How long is this going to last? How long until I couldn't stop that thought. I couldn't stop it for the life of me. And of course I created that. It fell apart, and that was the next big movement in my growth. That was about 2 to 3 months of depression, and then I just went for it. I dove in and started taking workshops, teachers, all kinds of them, and I probably spent, honestly, several $100,000 in coaching from different teachers, not just on social, but on all kinds of stuff. Traveling, getting mentors, working really hard, learning a lot about getting into your body. Embodiment became the key for me once I understood how that works. And I had one mentor I was with for 4 years that said I was so far out of my body, it looked like I was above my head. And he did a lot of work getting me to feel into my core, feel into my gut, relate to my body again, so that I could communicate emotionally with people.
Who was that? Do you mind
his name's Carl Wolf.
Oh my God, I've worked with Carl.
Have you?
Yes, a long time. Like, wow. Before my son.
He was hard on me, but it had a huge effect on my life.
He's hard. He is hardcore. Yeah. Wow. See, we even had that in common. We didn't even know it.
Didn't know it, no. He actually just came out of retirement, too. So.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Yeah, I just started getting emails from him again. So.
We send blessings to Carl. So keep your story going. I'm very, keep going. You're awesome.
And so that was the beginning. I did a lot of work with him where it was heavy embodiment, feeling my body, feeling all the crap that was stored deep down inside that I didn't want to face. And one of the things I noticed that I had told one of the things Carl would say to me is, tell me your deepest secrets because you need to get them out to heal. Yeah. And I would tell these secrets, but to me, I've told everything. There's nothing I'm hiding. I've tried to work through it all. That was my intent. I went through every moment of life. And I hit this one. I started to go back through them, and I hit this one while we were doing a movement class. And all this emotion came out of me, and I started to well up, and I started to cry a lot, and all this stuff came out of me, and it was really a moment. And I'm like, I've told that story a bunch of times, and I don't know why I'm crying now. I've never had this reaction. And he said something that was very pivotal in the way I even teach now, and in my understanding is, he says, you've never told it from feeling before. You've told it from your head. Yes. And that was when I realized that I had done a lot of work, but I hadn't done the work. Yeah. I had done the work on the surface, but on down at the emotions, the feelings, and then learned how to release them. And I had to build the story inside me from that point on that I could go through these and actually let them go, and then there's beauty on the other side of each one. More self-love, more self-love, more self-love.
Yeah.
And that's what my journey became about. And then eventually I started a dating coaching company, and what drove me nuts about it was, and it was all about inner work. It wasn't about techniques and pickup or any of that. It was about inner work.
Yeah.
And becoming the most powerful version of yourself, confident, attractive, feeling-based. It was a lot of body-based work, and it was great. But what I noticed was that even though I worked primarily on dating, what most people needed was more feeling, more confidence, and then most of the dating resulted. So, and they just needed to have a few tips. If I worked just on dating, it went very slow. When I switched that paradigm and said, "Who are you? What do you want?
Mm-hmm.
What are you about? What are you feeling? Can you be honest with in this case I was working primarily with guys. It's like, can you be honest with women and real rather than trying to make them happy? I had to really show them what that felt like, because these guys just didn't understand the difference.
Right.
And doing it from your body, talking from your body, listening from your body, that changed everything. And and everything's grown over the years from there. And I've gone through my ups and downs. Even then, I had to go through a whole year of a journey of healing my body from all the health problems I talked about earlier.
Oh,
and that changed my life again. And so
wow.
Yeah,
you're a beautiful man. Beautiful, beautiful story. And you know what's kind of funny, and then I'm going to ask you some questions. You know, the music that came on as we started, that was from a woman I met in Carl's class. She
really?
She created music she creates music for movies and stuff. So just such a crazy circle.
I love that. I love all the synchronicities, the connections.
Yeah, totally. So what we really, I love the work you do, because we have this so much in common about like working from the chin down. And one of my gifts is when people are in front of me, they're so, I'm so non-judgmental. I'm just so unconditionally loving that those tears kind of come up in my space quite quickly, and then we can remove them. And yet in life, that's not so safe, let alone even know how to get out of your head and into your body. And you spoke of the word embodiment. So could you define what that means for you, and then explain a little bit about how you dropped out of your head and into your body to begin to truly feel, and then kind of describe what feeling means to you?
Oh yeah, gladly. I think it's a buzzword right now within the healing communities, movement and stuff like that. And for me, movement means integrating your body, the neurology of your body with your consciousness, your awareness. In other words, taking all that. If you had a record player and your head was a record player, most people, it's running at a really high speed, and it's just going all day. Or a computer, it's speed and speed. And all that energy, if you only had 100 circuits of energy, this is for the analytical people, you got to take that 100 circuits and get it out of that computer up there and get it down into the body, get it flowing down into the body. So the brain actually becomes more silent, and the body takes on all that energy. Then what happens is that awareness goes down the spinal column for the scientific people. It goes down into the body, and then it connects to your nerves, it connects to your gut, it connects to your intestines, connects to your heart, and you begin to feel life through your body like you're meant to. Your body's your vehicle. And imagine trying to drive on the freeway without a car. You can't have a life without your body, yet we're trying to live our life with all our energy in our head.
Totally.
And you cut out of the gut. The gut is in the second brain. Talks about it all the time now. Just Google gut as a second brain. And it's an instinctual brain. And it tells you what to do, how to move from instinct. And it's like a supercomputer. And if you trust it, like all the most successful people in the world do, they all talk about it. It will guide you right to the top. But you got to be in tune with it. You got to be like dancing with it in alignment. So embodiment, for me, is about moving all the parts of the body and developing awareness and feeling in every part at a really subtle level. And my concern with a lot of people is I see some people doing it purely mechanically, and they're just working on the mechanic. To me, that's not embodiment, structural alignment type stuff, and it helps. And then I see people dramatizing the heck out of it to the point where it's all drama.
Yeah, right.
again, they're not feeling. And so there's space in between. And then, and when I look at yoga is one of the best examples of early embodiment. And it's this beautiful art. And when I go into some of these yoga schools where they got rock music pumping, they're lifting weights, they're back, and I'm like, this is no longer embodiment, this is exercise.
Yeah.
And because they're not feeling down to their body anymore, they're just training it, and that's not what yoga is about. And so to me, getting the exercise out of embodiment sometimes can be really good, so we can just focus on the feeling, little tiny movement here, little tiny movement there, and not get lost in the exercise part. Then adding that back in later when you've got the capacity to feel.
Totally. When I first grew up, I was in ballet class and jazz and tap and all that kind of stuff. The steps was very mechanical. And you also did them in competition to others while looking in a mirror, having to look perfect, like all this kind of stuff that would send me totally into my head. And then the next phase of my life, I got into being a dancer in Japan, and I chose to be a topless dancer for some of my different jobs. And it was one of the first times I learned about getting back into the body. Because on my side of the stage, Brian, all the men looked at me kind of sleazy. Why? Because I was believing I was a piece of meat. On the other side of the stage, where all the other girls were dancing who had no issues with topless whatsoever, they loved their bodies, all the men on that side of the stage were kind of like Boy Scouts, and they were bowing, and they were just like really nice. I'm like, what the fuck? Why is this? And so I started to learn that I could, like Tonglen, right? I can breathe in like a monk would breathe in the pain and suffering of the world, and exhale out love and compassion. And I could do the same thing as I dance, and I could actually create a different result in the audience around me. And then I moved to New York, and then I moved to LA, and I started doing different, like fumbling towards ecstasy or like Gabriel Roth, these different dance movement courses. And they said, don't you move your body, let your body move. I'm like, what? Even though I'd started to learn about the energy before, for the first time I slowed down enough, and Carl's work is similar to this as well, where I'm like, who is moving my arm? I'm not moving my arm right now. Holy fucking shit. And I started to surrender and let life move. And then sometimes when I do a coaching session this time and I say, let's expand out, and I put my arms to side, I swear there's people on either side pulling. I'm like, holy crap, there's a lot of energy right there. So what would you say, or do you have a tip, a technique, a process, or anything, even if you want to take people through whatever, the floor is yours. How can they go from this mechanics or the over-dramatization to just truly feeling and being in their body?
Well, I'll share. I was so far in my head, it was ridiculous, and it took me a long time to feel because of that. And one of the key ingredients, there's several ways you can solve that problem if you want to solve it quicker. But if you're on your own, the key ingredient for me was small movements. And I tried different forms of music till I found the music that really hit me emotionally. And then I would move my body to that music, but only at the rate I could really feel the emotion and that the emotion was moving me. So at first that was just my wrist. And it literally was just my right wrist. That's the only place I could really feel, and I could feel the difference between that and the rest of my body. Yeah. And that slowly in time expanded to more, to more, to more. And I remember there was a crying process in that, and going into my body. It hurt. But then love kicked on, and the sense of passion and compassion, and it kept growing from there. That's one way to do it. If you've got a good teacher that's in their body, just watching them move will start to ignite feeling in your body, or just watching people that are in feeling move. When I watch YouTube videos and I see that person feels, you can feel it coming off their body. That's why everybody's viewing their channel. That's why everybody's watching their videos. You can tell because they're down in their core. They're moving from their core. And so that helps me too, and then I go back and do it some more. I don't even have to logically. Matter of fact, it's better if I don't logically understand it, because as soon as you logically understand it, you're using your brain, and you got to use your instinct. And then getting with a teacher that knows how to feel and sitting in front of them, and they can guide you down in your body, and much quicker than anything else. That's probably the fastest way. I've like chat MCell, and techniques like that where you actually look at the person, and what we're doing in that case is just looking at the tiniest, subtlest movements and expressions on your body with a feeling-based response, and then moving you down until you're all the way down in lower in your body, and then opening you more. And that's a process.
Yeah.
So those are a few different ideas.
That's great.
Just meditation too. So.
Yeah.
I was going to say, well, this is one thing that I'm so passionate about this stuff. One thing I wanted to say was, when you do meditation, if you're just going to do meditation, I think it's beautiful. Watching your breath, all that stuff. There's transcendental, where you're trying to get out of your body, and then there's meditation where you're going down and you're opening to the environment around you, feeling more and more of the environment. That is what I'm talking about.
Yes, me too. That's such a great distinction, because a lot of people think, because Brian was mentioning, when you first begin to enter the body, quite often it's painful before it's blissful, because you're going through that layer that you've been not wanting to go towards, and you stay in your mind spinning up there. Quite often in the metaphysical community, our ways of meditating or what have you, we leave our body. And yeah, of course it's blissful out there in the cosmos, but can we bring that into our body and be that here? That to me is what life is about, is can we, in the moment, breathe? In the moment, can we allow? In the moment, can we stay present? In the moment, can we feel and not go anywhere? So super cool. Sometimes, Brian, when I was first getting the hang of this as a coach, because I've been doing this for 17 as my business, but clearly, obviously, I'm a much better coach now, and I even would say, I don't really like the word healer, because it almost feels like superior, inferior, which is not it at all, but I am a manipulator in a good way, like a changer of energy for the highest good, like the old definition of manipulation, to change something for the highest good. So I sense energy now, and I never did years and years ago. But I realized very early in coaching, Brian, that if I asked the person a question, their mind would answer. So then I'd start to go, wait a second, thank you, you can go to sleep now. Heart, I need to talk to you. Stomach, I need to talk to you. Balls, I need to talk to you. Cock, I need to talk to you. Breasts, I need to talk to you. Like, I would talk to all these vaginas, body parts. You'd be amazed the truth that would come out when they would go and let their knowingness lead the way. And so, coming back to you, way back when you were evolving and you were with that one woman, but you were like, okay, when am I going to blow it? Clearly in the mind. And I understand you have a beloved now. What was different, and how'd you get rid of that thought, and how's it going? How's it going in your current relationship?
Well, what was different? It's years later, years and years and years of let it go. That was before I had done all this work with Carl and David Data, and studied David Data intensively, studied from my other coaches intensively, done tons of movement. And what I've learned now is, now that I can feel down into my body, when those types of thoughts come up, I no longer take them as me anymore. It's like, there's an old saying that I can't remember where I originally heard it, but if the blue sky is you, there's going to be clouds. No longer, when the clouds come up, I don't think I'm the clouds anymore. I'm just like, oh, look at that stupid thought, or look at that funny thought, or look at that weird thought. I just kind of laugh at it. And then I just move into it with my body, feel into it, and eventually it just moves away. And and because of that, I don't project it out. If I do project it out, I own it 100%. I say I can handle it, and I'll even talk about it openly with other people, and that helps dissolve it. But I don't talk about it like, oh, poor me, what am I going to do now? Now I say stuff like, wow, look at this thought. I want to put like a light flashlight on it. This is what I'm experiencing. This is what I'm feeling. And I start to allow my body, like you talked about, speaking to the different parts of the body. I allow my body to talk the feelings there. Versus my head talking about the experience my body's having. This distinction is huge for getting down into the body. And because of that, those types of thoughts really, every once in a while something pops up that's, the right moment, the right time. And I can even just turn to my girl and talk to her about it. Hey, this is what I'm experiencing right now. It's not a big deal.
Could you be specific without, be as vulnerable as you feel comfortable with, just so we really get a sense of like what went down, what was actually said, how did it unfold, how did she react, like all that stuff?
Let me think here for a minute. I have to find a specific moment. We had a conversation about, I don't know, it had to be about a month ago or so, where that's something to the effect of looking at me and saying, trying to remember the exact words here, is I'm feeling like you right now I'm feeling like you don't really want to be with me. You just really want to, I'm just here for convenience and for sex, something like that. And I listened to that, and I thought that was, my first thought and reaction was, how, to my mind and my body was, that's ridiculous. Then my second reaction was stop and listen to what it, feel her.
Yeah.
And so I said, really? And she said, yes. And I just looked at her, and I didn't say much for a minute. And she said, what? And I said, nothing. I'm just kind of feeling it right now. I said, you really believe that? And she said, yes. And I said, wasn't it like 3 nights last week I just wanted to hang out and not have sex? Yeah, but that's not what I mean. And she's saying something different now, and I'm just listening. And I'm like, what's really going on here? And I realized the week before I had been a little rushed with my business and pulled away a lot, and had been in my head rushing. And I looked at it and I said, what I'm getting from this is she's not feeling like I care. And I felt for that in my body, and I said, and I really felt how it was weird. I could feel how that kind of hurt me, because I could see that I was holding back in my own emotions, and I could see where I was. It wasn't just her. This was me. She was actually right. I was holding back, not letting her see all of me in that week, not letting her see what I was dealing with.
Right.
And so I had to call that out myself. And in that moment, I said, well, what it actually feels like is, because it actually took me a little while. I didn't say this right away. I waited a little later in the evening, and then I said, you know what it feels like is I just, I didn't show up enough last week, and that's what I'm thinking happened. And I just started immediately, instead of talking about it, I started showing up right there, connecting with her more that night, dropping in more with her that night, laying down with her, talking to her, connecting to her, not talking about it, but being the energy, being the beingness of the person I should have been the week before, and all went away like that.
These are, just one second. Those are such great distinctions. I want to break them down so people, before we go on. So the first thing is, you said, you sort of reacted a little bit, really, like, no, that's not true. But then you said you didn't just turn and listen to her. You said you turned and felt her. It's very different. So talk about that first. Like, this is for women as well. So how can anybody feel into somebody as opposed to listen?
Well, this is where embodiment's important. If you're in your body, in positive psychology, I love to talk in both terms of a little bit metaphysical, a little bit scientific, so people who are still who are in their heads can understand, or people who are more analytical, have a science-based background. In positive psychology, they have a term called positive inception they're playing with, and I used to call it emotional transference, but it's just basically, it's transference of emotion from one person to another. And when you're in your body, you can feel other people's emotions. You can actually go into states where you're like in a bubble with that person, and you can feel what they're feeling. You can even get down to where you feel they're a little sick to the stomach. You can feel that. Are you sick to your stomach right now? If you're really connected. And those people are also good motivators that can do that well. If you're in your head, you won't have that ability. So the first step is you got to be in your body. And when you're in your body, then I'll stop and I'll drop down into my body first, and then and then it's a practice of opening while I'm in my body, not being closed, but feeling the sense of openness to her, inviting her in. And I'm sitting there seeing if I can feel what she's feeling. The next thing is I can't be codependent about it. I can't immediately get all worried and then want to fix her, make her happy. I have to be willing to let her sit in it and me sit in it for a bit to get the whole picture. And to understand, to say what I need to say may not be about making her happy or making me happy. It's going to be about what the moment needs. And so I got to sit and really take that in.
Yes, and just one second there, because that's so important too. I believe the reason why Brian can do this is because he's been able to sit in his own, you know how I always talk about sitting in the fire? He's been able to be with his own discomfort and move through it, breathe through it, release it, etc., so that when he's with his girlfriend, he doesn't have to go over there and fix her. He doesn't have to hide. He can just go through whatever and be unattached and just be present. So that's how he did that, I think. Would you agree?
I think there's a lot to that. Yeah, there's a huge amount. And then also we do a lot of work in the workshops with feeling other people. For the guys, it's feeling other women, and being comfortable feeling their rise and fall of their own emotion, pains, their hurts, and their joy and their happiness, and their pushing and not taking it. So we do a lot of work with that. So
nice.
And so that's basically what I did. I just sat in it, and then the information, the intuitive hits come to you, and they come in the form of feelings. Like I'm feeling emotions, and then I got to be willing to feel those emotions, and then those emotions through contemplation, not analyzation, take on a meaning. Contemplation, sitting with an idea till your body gives you the answer versus your head trying to figure it out. And in that moment, I started to see how I had been pulling away and holding back from her, and how I had not been opening up my body, been closing off, been rushed with her, and I saw that I needed to face that part of me that wanted to do that, and so I had to say that was what was going on for me.
Wow. How did that resolve for you? Because you're so responsible with your growth every time. It sounds like every time something comes up, you just like deal with it. So how, in a relationship, as a busy entrepreneur with a lovely girlfriend, what is the new choice or the new way of being that you're taking on, that this experience gave you another, opportunity to choose again?
The new choice is I learned to be more open with the world. Because if I'm being more open with her, then I got to take that into the world, my business, with everything, and then everything grows from it. But the thing is that process never ends. It's a daily process of, because as I grow bigger, or as you grow bigger, as anybody grows bigger, we got to do it again. More responsibility comes in. More people are seeing you on the internet, bring you it, and I got to do it again. Because as I grow, if I don't do it again, I'll stagnate, and that goes on for the rest of your life. And you'll feel it when you're not doing it. Something's going to start to come back and tell you. Something's not going to work. Something's going to fight you. You're going to be in a fight. And I've been in fights with myself for days on end, just trying to feel into it. My body doesn't want to do it until it finally surrenders. And those are uncomfortable moments, but the other side is so rewarding. And to me, that's a lifelong journey.
I'm in complete agreement, and it's a journey that it's why I get up in the morning, because for me, the fear, you said your company, Fearless, people, it's thefearlessman.com. So this idea of fearlessness, I don't think it's possible in the mind, because you're freaking out. And yet there's a sense of safety and home that I've never found anywhere through analytical cognitive analysis that allows me to rest, like really exhale all the way. So can you just talk a little bit about that place of home, so that, because I think it's really connected to one's capacity to sit through discomfort, one's capacity to not try to fix the other or get all codependent, one's capacity to, something uncomfortable happens in life and you don't rush off trying to run away from the feeling. You can just go, okay, this sucks, I'm just going to keep breathing. Like, I believe if you don't know that there's home, if you've never touched peace or freedom or this sense of safety all the way to the core, I think it's quite difficult to be with discomfort. Am I making sense?
Oh, yeah, it's scary. David Nagel, who's a business coach, used to call it the terror barrier. There's this,
nice,
and it's like being on a football field, and there's all these big, huge linemen in front of you. And at first, you're going down the field. It's all right. Okay, I'm playing the game. I'm going. But as you get closer and closer to the end zone, you're about to make a touchdown. They get meaner and bigger, and that's all your stories coming up. That's all your thoughts. And it's good. They're going to get the meanest and the biggest and the most violent with you, your thought, right before you cross that finish line. And when you cross it, it's a sense of huge expansion and freedom, like you just let go of a huge story. And you believe about yourself, and you're like, whoa, I can do this. Now, the first time you do that process, artist.
Yeah.
And that's where I really recommend you have somebody, if you're doing it with something big, like a big move, like starting a business, it's really important to have a coach or somebody to watch you, because your stuff is going to come up and you're going to be like, oh my God, I can't handle this, I can't handle that. And having feedback from others about who you're being in that moment is huge. And you got to get those first few under your belt. Then you start to realize more and more that it's all just mind chatter, and you can start to detach from it. And And if you've ever read Richard Branson's autobiography, Losing My Virginity, it's a great book. Childhood is filled with this stuff. His child, as a little boy, his parents' journeys where he faced fear over and over and over again, and he ran towards it at 100 miles an hour, and they encouraged him to keep going, you can do it. And in that, he developed a habit, and what happened is you move from a fear of crossing that terror barrier to a passion for moving towards the next one. Let's get in the next game. Let's do it again. Like professional football players can't wait to get on the field, or professional athlete can't wait to get up there and say, let's do it again. And you move from forcing yourself to do it towards loving doing it. And that's why I talk a lot about learning to love tension in life. I believe that whenever anybody manifests anything, they've got three components. They've got their thought, which starts with a thought, then mixed with emotion, which is the fuel, but then you need tension, and then it guides it, it directs it. And if you're scared of tension, if you're running from tension in life, you're not enjoying the beauty of tension, and you don't see it as beautiful and sensual and fun, then you're going to have a really hard time growing in life. Life is always going to be about, how do I get rid of stress? How do I get rid of tension? And tension will be destructive to your body. And studies show that when you believe tension is good for you, just like a bodybuilder lifting weight, then the tension will grow your body. And so we do all kinds of stuff to teach people to fall in love with that process of loving everyday tension all the way to the big tension right before they cross that goal line.
I love it. You would have loved my pole dancing class this week. It was the week of tying ourselves to the pole. It was like stretchy ropes, and it's amazing. We don't wear heels that week. We can really get literally tripped up. But the idea of like, normally the pole is something we swim around or we climb up, but we're totally free to leave choice at will. But when the ropes are there and you're in that friggin' like resistant state, and then I don't want this, and I need this to be different, and then there's like the surrender, and then as you were saying, running towards the fear, and like you start to shift into the deliciousness and the passion and the yumminess of just being with the tension. And I always used to think that poor butterfly, oh dear, poor butterfly, suffers and suffers and suffers, and then he's happy, or then she's happy. Who are we to know? Maybe the butterfly's like, yeah, look at it, I'm gonna press this. Maybe it's orgasmic inside a cocoon. I don't know, but yeah,
it's a process. The butterfly. They're all metaphors for this process that we have to go through in life. Every single one of us, every time we grow. And tension, I always say tension. Life is filled with tension. You do not grow to the next level without experiencing. A seed in the ground has to dig roots and then fight its way to the surface and then fight its way through seasons to become a tree. Sex is tension and then the release of tension in the end. And it's that tension and release. A baby growing in the womb, a baby being born. How about and everything in life is tension. You think about it, and I always say there's emotional and physical tension. Stepping into emotion and facing emotional tension, then there's physical tension, like on the battlefield. And men typically are more exposed to physical tension. They get used to it. They love it. But they start to love it or they avoid it. It depends on the guy. They have some love for it, even if it's at a distance, because they love football and movies with tension in it. And women tend to be drawn towards emotional tension. And in that, it's a real interesting thing. I think that people are craving tension, but they're so scared of, like tension would be like quitting your job and choosing the life of your dreams, going for your goals. But they're so scared of doing that because the need for security is so strong in all of us that we end up like passionless zombies walking the street, going to our cubicle jobs every day. And then we go get our tension where? Books, movies, sitting with a popcorn, a soda in an air-conditioned room on a cushy chair, watching a
getting
football
killed
game,
at a Giants game.
And then, but not the one playing, not the one having the adventure, not the one taking the risk. We're watching other people do it because we so need it, but we won't do it ourselves. And we avoid it in life. And that skill needs to be developed in every one of us if you want to bring your passion back in life and let burning desires come back into your life and let yourself chase your dreams. Because otherwise, every time the tension builds, you'll turn and run back to the starting line. Tension builds on that field to run back to the starting line. And so we focus heavily on getting people to face that tension. really.
Yeah. I love it. I took, what was it called? That was it, hypnobirthing. And it's the contraction, it's like, no, that's just a surge of energy. Mommy and baby are one. And I had it at birth, because every time the tension would come, I'd like lean into it, breathe through it, and like he was totally there, super fast. I was eating an In-N-Out burger. And it was still uncomfortable. I won't say it wasn't uncomfortable. And the pushing was super hard. But the pain and the suffering, I guess it would be more accurately said, the suffering that most, I think, women feel in childbirth, I believe is exactly what you're saying right there. To lean into the tension creates a whole different experience and result.
And I think that's true with I think people that are really good with pain are good at, like you just said, exactly like you said, breathing into it and breathing into it, feeling it, and then learning to read their body in the midst of the pain, and then the pain goes away, because most pain is caused by fighting what's in front of you, fighting, resisting, fighting.
Oh my God. This is so true, Brian. I remember the very first time I was on the stand, I'm going through this custody thing. The very first time I was on the stand, I was terrified. There's a judge, and there's this really mean litigator saying all these lies to me, and there's a lady typing beside you, and your kid's on the line. And for the first 10 minutes, I was terrified. I was tense. I was like justifying myself and projecting all this kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden, something came over me like an aha. I'm like, wait a minute. I get to choose how I respond. This is my courtroom, and my whole body relaxed. And I said, like, I finished the question, and he kept saying, strike that from the record, like trying to get me to shut up. Like, the lady typing. And I just finished what I had to say, more from that place of knowingness that we talk about in the body, not a thought. And by the end of that thing I said, what's your next question? Like, I was in charge. Totally different. Yeah, really, really wild.
You surrendered to your gut, really. You went into flow, trusted your gut more than anything else.
Yeah, which under pressure like that is hard. So all of us have our own versions of what that pressure is, but we can do it. Brian, excuse me, Brian's an amazing teacher for this. So it's 4:45. I have a client right at 5, so I want to be on time, but there's a hand that's raised. Are you willing to take a question, Brian?
Oh, yeah, of course, please.
Okay, awesome. So I'm taking, I think it's Peter. Is it?
Oh, can you hear me?
Peter, go for it. What's your question?
Oh, I was raising my hand before.
You don't have a question anymore?
To say hi, I heard Brian before talk when he was with Andy at Daygame.com. He had a great webinar, and it wasn't something that you brought up tonight, but something that you talked about. Some of your clients, they come with a problem, or if they just are coming for more self-development. If they have a problem, they seem like they can't overcome it. But if they're coming at the mindset of I just want to get better at this one thing, then they tend to be more successful at that.
Can you ask it one more time? Do I get a lot of people that come in with a specific problem?
Well, with the mindset of they have a problem they want to fix, and for me, sometimes I feel like, I have a problem. I can't get a date or whatever. But sometimes I feel I just want to improve an area, and everything is going better. Or everything, I just want to improve my life.
Most clients are motivated by a problem. That's really why they come in the door. The bulk of our clients are in their heads and want to get out of their heads for dating, and they're tired of all the pickup stuff, and it just doesn't work for them. That's because that's who we market to. We talk to that crowd, break the nice guy syndrome and become real. Learn to be real, this type of stuff. So we talk to that crowd, and that crowd shows up. We're going to talk more and more to crowds, men and women, ultimately, about down the road, learning to love being uncomfortable and learning to love tension in life. And that when you understand that when you mix tension, emotion, and thought, you can create anything you want once you master those three things. And those are the skill sets of life. But most of our clients do come in with usually they're in their head, or they're locked up, or they're holding back their emotions. Some people can feel, but then when they get in front of a woman or a partner, they shut off their emotions because they're so scared to let that person in. And that's the type of problem that typically comes in the door.
Cool. Did that support you, Peter?
Yeah, I think the follow-up was like, it seems like I remember, Brian, you mentioning that it seems that they don't overcome their problem because they're thinking of it as a problem.
I know what you're talking about. You're talking about one of our core philosophies. I get what you're saying. We have a series of philosophies we teach everybody. They have nothing to do with dating. They have to do with life and having a powerful relationship with life. And I have literally 30-some philosophies written down about life, but we teach a core of 9 typically. And one of the most important ones is the one he's mentioning, which is this idea that, and you probably see this all the time, Alana, you go into a seminar and the room will be filled with people that have been working on themselves for 10 years, 20 years, and they seem about the same, but they keep going for it, and they're crying in the corner again, and they're crying in the corner again, and then the other part of the room, and maybe they'll cry a little bit or do their thing, but then they grow. And then they're like, wow, that was amazing. And then they go out in the flat afternoon, and their life changes, and they come back from lunch with stories about all the great things. And I started to ask myself, what was the difference between those two groups? And Carl used to say to me years ago, he used to say, Brian, you got to realize you're not broken. Nothing's going to work until you stop and realize you're perfect just the way you are. And I would sit there and think to myself, well, that's ridiculous, because if I'm not broken, why would I come in here? I wouldn't even show up. I would just stay home.
Right.
And that was me in my head. And so years later, I came to the realization, I was sitting there actually in Arizona at another workshop, and I was watching this go on. And I was looking at the crowd back and forth, and it hit me. This half of the room thinks they're broken, and they've thought that they're broken for 10 years, and they're trying to fix themselves. And for the last 10 years, by law of attraction or with a particular activating system of the brain, every time they fix one problem, they find a new one and a new one and a new one, because they fundamentally, at their core, believe they're broken, and they'll never stop fixing themselves. This side of the room does not think they're broken. They think they're perfect just the way they are, but they want a greater experience of life. And I realized at that moment that we'll never stop wanting a greater experience of life. That life is more. That's something David Nagel says. Life is more, and we'll always want to experience more. And so it's like, if I want to go learn to play the piano, am I broken because I don't know how? No. Was Helen Keller broken because she couldn't hear and see? No. She created beautiful works of art. Is Stephen Hawking broken because he's in a wheelchair and he can't move his body? No. They're beautiful. They're having beautiful expressions of life because we're all experiencing our problems. So either all broken or broken. And at that point, it just becomes purely about expansion and growth, expansion and growth. And then when you shift your mind, that's when you shift out of victim consciousness into real growth, real moving forward. And that has to be felt deep in the core of your being. It's not just a thought. So I give people a lot of homework to go out and see it in nature, see it in life, see it in people walking down the street, to see it as many places as they can. I give them assignments to look for it so they can get it down to their nervous system, this realization, because just knowing it is not going to give them the feeling of it.
I agree. I love that. What was the moment, even though Carl said, you're not broken, when was the moment that you actually embodied that and knew it as an awareness, as a truth?
Oh, it was years later. And it was amazing. It's because the way he said it was, my analytical mind just couldn't accept it. And so I was actually hanging out with Chad, and I was at a Sedona method seminar several years back, like 3 years back or something like that, and I was sitting in the audience, and this epiphany came over me as I was watching Hale Dwoskin talk, and I was looking at the crowd, and I was like, why are these guys still struggling? I mean, this is a great technique, and I was like, and then that's when it all flashed. I'm like, oh, that's why everybody's taking seminar after seminar, but their lives aren't changing. Yeah. And then Carl flashed in my mind, and it all came together, and then I just went to town embodying that in my body, and every part of my life has radically grown since. Radically.
Oh, that's so beautiful. I think the first times I ever embodied it or got it, as a knowing and awareness, not a thought, my mama just died, and I was at some workshop. That's because it sounds like we do the same thing. We keep going to workshops and working with mentors. So this one was like, okay, now go out and find something. So we were supposed to find something in the trees or find something on the ground. It was a thing. And then they're like, okay, now go into the space between the leaves and the space between the trunks and the branches and the space between the grass, the blades of grass. I've never looked there before, Brian. And as soon as I let my awareness go there, boom, my mom was right there. Like, my mom was everything. My mom was, like, she was, like, pressing up into every pore of my skin and in and out of my heart. Like, she had been there all along. I just never looked there. And it was exquisite. It was tearful, but, like, tears of relief that we really are one. Tears that we really are held. Tears of relief that we really are safe. Like, all the tears of relief, we really are enough. All that stuff. And as you just said, that we're not broken. That was my first embodiment of it. And I'll never forget it.
And that's your Satori moment.
Yeah,
it's beautiful. You know, there's a description I give, and you just reminded me of it, and it's the same basic idea. I always think of a burned out, abandoned building. Is that building broken? And to a developer, he can make money off of it. So to him, it's beautiful. To a homeless family, it might be shelter for a week. To an artist, it might be perfect for his photographs to create art that inspires the world.
Right.
Is that building really broken? It's all perspective. And you choose the perspective, and you just chose a different perspective there. You got all the beautiful benefits that came with that new perspective.
Yeah.
Which is the gift of your mom and the gift of that connection. And it was beautiful.
Thank you. And the gift of the, I don't know if we want to call it courage, but like this tension that you talked about, my willingness to lean into tension after that was so much easier because I knew Mom was there. I knew God was there. I knew the universe was there. I knew awareness was there. Like, whatever you want to call it, like I touched it, tasted it, rested into it. So I think that's a very important component as we do this journey. So let us end, because I would love to talk to you for hours and hours, but I want to be on time for my next client. So alanapratt.com/Brian, BRIAN Begin, BEGIN, talking more about what we've been talking about, a wonderful ebook called Fearless with Women. Can you talk about that?
It's funny, we call it Fearless with Women, but it's really about you becoming more powerful as a man, getting into your body, learning to be grounded, learning to stand in your core, and learning to be the masculine polarity of the feminine, while at the same time having a relationship to your own feminine, you know, so that you can better relate to the woman in front of you. And that's what it's really about. It's about, this is the way I like to say it, the guy that is naturally good with women doesn't walk out the door and say, how do I attract a woman? I need a technique. He just expects it to happen. And it's the same thing with a woman to a man. A woman that knows and like her, don't walk out the door thinking, how do I attract a man today? They know men are going to like them. That's the deal. You're built to do it. You're the natural polarity to women. And if there's something in the way between you and that polarity, then you need to start uncovering it. And this is the process to uncovering it. And getting into your body, being a masculine man, and working on who you're being first before you even say a word. Who is the man sitting there? How does he think and feel before he even gets up and says a word and talks to a woman? And that's a lot about what the ebook's about. And it's a good process for, I think, men who even aren't working on their relationship with women. It's because you know, life is feminine. There's so much emotion in life and feeling and depth of feeling. In that sense, if you get in a relationship with it, life becomes a lot more fun, I'll tell you.
Beautiful. So again, that's alanapratt.com/Brian-Begin, and you can also find more about him at his site, thefearlessman.com. So this was amazing. Thank you so much for who you are and all that you shared with us and what we've learned and your vulnerability. The last line of the show, the last message from your heart to theirs, what would you like that to be, Brian?
It's funny. It sounds so cheesy, but my tagline, it fits right here. What would you do if you were not afraid? What would you do with your life if you were not afraid? And I love that, because if you really sit with that question, all kinds of possibilities could open.
Yeah. Stunning. Thank you for who you are and all you've provided us today. I will see all of you next week on Intimate Conversations Live, and know that I love you. Bye-bye.
Thanks used to obsess over these goals, like how am I going to have a good life if I don't have good money, or how am I going to have a good life if I don't accomplish X goal or Y goal. The problem with that is the goals never end. Part of our evolution is to learn to manage the greater capacity of information and teach our subconscious to sort for what we want out of it.